Hey everybody! So I'm going to be doing a review of Sultan. I saw it last night. Some of you may have seen my first impressions review from when I came out of the theater. And I wanted to talk about that first before we get into the rest of the movie. Now, there was a scene where Sultan and this other rival were catching kites. And they had made a bet that said whoever did not catch the last kite, or the first kite to fall, would have to ride through the streets on a donkey with a dark face. Now, I was ignorant to this whole thing. I've never heard of it or have seen it before. And my brain was thinking a dark-faced donkey, like it was a specific species of donkey or something. I had no idea that it was actually darkening his face while he was on a donkey. My immediate reaction is what you saw in my impressions reaction, that it was racist and blackface. Now, for those of you that don't know, blackface was a type of entertainment, stage, and film in the United States for a very long time, from the late 1800s, coming up to like even the 1950s, maybe even the 60s a little bit. And it's highly racist. Like it's ingrained in our heads how racist blackface is. So when I first saw it, that's immediately what I thought of, was the blackface of film, and basically saying that he's supposed to feel embarrassed because he has darker skin, he has a black face now, and he has to ride a donkey down the street. After talking with a few people and reading some comments and then researching some stuff on my own, I think this is more of a large cultural difference in that they were not making his face look darker to say that he should be embarrassed if he had darker skin. But what they were doing was highlighting him to say that he lost the bet. And they used black ink to highlight him. And that took me a long time to try to understand, because it still sounded racist. But someone pointed out they could have used green or blue and it would do the same thing. That they're just highlighting him, making him more pronounced so that everyone could see him and, say, haha, you lost. But it had nothing to do with the color of the person's skin. That is a huge cultural difference. It's very difficult for me to understand. And it was really difficult for some of my friends that I was talking to, subscribers that I talked to, how to explain it to me as well. I think I have an understanding, but I will say that would never be accepted in the United States. If they did green or blue, sure, that's fine. That's funny or whatever. But black ink, no. We immediately, my brain did the same thing. We immediately go to the racist blackface of the entertainment that was around for 60 years in early film. So that will always be seen as racist, and you would have to explain this to people every single time, because it will always be seen as racist in America. Even if your context was not, that's where our brain is going to automatically go. And I hope you can understand where we're coming from, that some of the pictures I have up here of what blackface was, and that it was meant to be racist. So whenever we see it, we automatically think of a negative connotation. So it jarred me. It really surprised me. I was not expecting that. I had never heard of it before, and so it kind of pulled me out of the movie near the beginning because I didn't know what was going on. It was quite shocking to me, actually. I would have liked some warning on that, but I guess for next time I'll know. It's just I'm not a big fan of it. So now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the movie. This whole thing is going to be spoilers because I already did my impressions, so you can see a spoiler free of my impression of the movie. In my previous video, this is going to be all spoilers. Now, Sultan, it's basically a love story, and he falls in love with this girl, and turns out she's a wrestler. She wants to be an Olympic wrestler. And she will only marry a wrestler, another wrestler. So he becomes a wrestler to try and gain her love. But over time, it gets in his head, and he's now like full-on wrestler. He becomes one of the greatest wrestlers. He wins the Olympic medal. And she ends up marrying him. But it goes to his head, and it's like that's all that matters now. And she's pregnant, and they end up having a baby. He's got a rare blood type, O negative. I actually have O positive, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And he goes off to do a championship, world championship, but she asked him not to go because she could feel that she's going to have the baby any minute. She ends up having the baby while he's gone, and the baby dies because they did not have any O negative blood, and he was out of the country. He was in Turkey wrestling for the world championship. So she blames him now for the baby's death and basically doesn't want to see him ever again. And a few years go by. He stops wrestling. He starts saving. He has a gym, and he starts saving up money to open a blood bank, an O negative blood bank, in honor of his son that had died. And then it comes kind of full circle to like present day, where there's a new fighting league that is exactly like UFC in the United States. We have the Ultimate Fighting Championship, but they called it like the breakdown or the knockdown. But it's MMA, it's mixed martial arts fighting. And he now has to learn. So he didn't want to do it at first, but then he joins in because they are going to give him enough money to finish and open up his O negative blood bank for his son. So he now has to learn how to do the striking and some of the holds for limb holds to be able to fight in this knockdown. But he's slightly overweight now. He's out of shape. He has to learn. He's getting older. And so it's an underdog story. And I really love underdog stories. Those are some of my favorite. Now, they had two montages, workout montages. And I love the Rocky movies. So if you watch all the Rocky movies, Rocky Balboa, they have workout montages where they've got an inspirational song going on. He's starting to work out but can't do it. And then eventually he's like, awesome and able to do amazing feats. And it's real like pumping, like it gets you going, like makes you want to go exercise. And so we had two of those. We had one when he first started becoming a wrestler and he was learning how to be a wrestler. And then we got another one when he was learning to do the MMA stuff, the mixed martial arts for the knockdown. And I loved both of those montages. I absolutely loved those montages. And I was happy that I got two of them. The first half of the movie concentrates a lot on the wrestling. And I did love the fact that, Indian wrestling traditionally took place in dirt. He was a farmer. and he said that he was from the soil, you know, so he always had some of the soil of the ring that he would rub in his hands before he goes on a match. And I liked that touch. I really liked that touch. It brought it back to like his roots, and he uses that as motivation, more motivation. The second half of the movie is very much like the movie Warrior, and also other, almost a lot like Warrior, because that was MMA, that was mixed martial arts also, but it was about two brothers that were going up against each other. And I like those kind of movies as well, like Kickboxer or Bloodsport, where you have a tournament and you have the underdog and he's winning the matches and you're rooting for him, but he's getting injured, and like he gets injured in one of the bouts and now he's got to fight an even tougher guy, and so you're rallying behind him. It's very inspirational. So I did love that whole thing too. I liked that part, that whole second half. For the music, like the music for the two montages were great, very inspirational, got me into it. The song in the beginning, which was also kind of a montage, but it was the beginning credits, and you see him riding on his scooter, and he picks up the kids, and he's going to the gym and all that. I really liked that song as well. Now I think it was the third song in the movie. They were dancing and doing all that normal stuff, but then it pops into like an MTV music video, and every time they do that, if there's no explanation to why, there's no context, it pulls me out of the movie. So if you watch some movies, like when I saw Basha, when they did the song about the king, him being her king, that was a daydream in her mind. So she was daydreaming that whole sequence. So that makes sense. If it's a dream sequence, it makes sense. If it's a hallucination, it makes sense. But if it's, for me, it would have to be explained to why they're doing that. Otherwise, I would prefer them to be, in the movie and in the moment, dancing and singing. Just like, again, in the beginning of Basha, where they're doing the dance sequence of the Automen, where they're dancing around and singing about being Automen. Like, that's a context in the movie, so I like that. So whenever it does pop into like a music video, I want there to be some kind of explanation, like someone's daydreaming or hallucinating or dreaming, or something just to give me a context that I can be like, okay, I can deal with that. Otherwise, it pulls me out and it confuses me. For the directing, I loved the directing in this movie. They pulled the camera back for some of the fights. There were a couple of fights where the camera was too close, and it was a little hard to tell what was going on, but not too much. And I did like, for the most part, especially the wrestling, the camera got pulled back a little bit. It was not a wide angle, but it was a medium angle. And you could see all the moves. You could tell what they were doing. You could follow the strategy of the fight. And so I really loved that. I think I liked the dirt wrestling more than I did the Olympic wrestling. And then I liked the MMA battles. The color schemes looked pretty good. It was pretty standard. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. The colors were fairly crisp, but not as crisp as other movies. It just looked like a normal film, but the color was still good. The cinematography was decent. It wasn't anything amazing. I didn't see any shots that awed me, but it followed the story. So it more held the story. They concentrated on the story, which was what you should do anyway. For the acting, I thought it was fine. Nothing super amazing, but you know, it supported the story as well. There wasn't too much I had against the movie. There were a couple of scenes that I thought were silly, but it was okay. It had nothing to, wasn't bad. There was some good humor in the movie. Some of the lines that they said were pretty humorous, so I did laugh a few times. All in all, I pretty much I liked the movie, but it wasn't something that I would buy on DVD or anything like that. I would give it, my rating would be a 6 out of 10. It's a movie that I liked. I would like to see it again at some point, especially now that that beginning part doesn't jar me because I kind of understand it. But it's a movie I would watch again. If it was on TV, I'd watch it, but it's not something I would go out and buy. I would suggest renting it instead of seeing it in the theaters. But if you like those kind of movies, you know, fighting movies, underdog movies, kind of like a Rocky movie, then I say you should go and see it in the theater. But those are my thoughts. Comment below and let me know what you think. Also, you can check out my Patreon, all of my social medias, and physical mailbox that you can mail me things. You can mail me posters and whatever. Doesn't matter. All of the links to that are in the description below. So like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and I will see you on the next video.